Toe dipping is an interesting one. I sometimes imagine a real social scenario where everybody's meeting in some place. Let's pretend they're meeting in a pub. And everybody comes together and you walk in and you don't say anything for a while. And then you maybe put a little bit into the conversation and somebody says something back, but you don't bother responding, or maybe you just didn't quite catch it because you weren't fully tuned in. The idea of toe dipping in a conversation is usually fairly socially unacceptable. It's a bit difficult to try and carry off. And if you're going to start a conversation or start a discussion, there's an expectation, a social norm, if you like, that you're going to carry on and you're going to stay engaged. So toe dipping in social media terms is difficult. And it would be my suggestion to you that toe dipping, if that's the front of your mind now, maybe wait a little bit longer, because perhaps really there are some issues that you need to ask about in more detail so that you're more confident about doing engagement using social media as a whole. Toe dipping, I would suggest, won't work. It will, however, potentially let down parents, because the second you step forward into a social platform, there is an expectation that you will carry on and that you will be an active part of the conversation. So try and avoid the toe dipping thing. Some people perceive toe dipping as using Twitter. Can we just use Twitter? I've heard that so many times. Can we just use Twitter? I think that gets asked because it's perceived as a tool which a school can use, but not necessarily have to commit to too much. You can tweet out the odd thing, and maybe it'll get seen, but by very few people. And so if you make an error on Twitter, let's say you do something silly like a type error, then there's not going to be any front page news story about that. You're also not going to have to deal with building relationships too much using Twitter. You're not going to have too much commitment from parents to it because, at least in our experience, they're actually not on Twitter. So if it's in your mind, can we just use Twitter? I'd suggest that, again, maybe you hang on. Maybe do a little bit more looking around. Maybe ask a few more head teachers who are already using social media. Ask them what they're using. Ask me, if you like, and I can share some stories with you from other schools who we've worked with. Toe dipping, I'd try and avoid it. If you're just thinking we only want to use Twitter, we don't want to use anything else, have a really good think about what end result you want from using Twitter, because somebody's going to have to make those tweets. Somebody's going to have to take those photographs, and nobody wants to be doing something where the return is low for their effort. It's a little bit like putting a class teacher in charge of their school website page for their class. So many teachers start off putting up lots of information about what's happening in their class over the coming term, but it doesn't take long for them to realise that actually not many people, if any, are actually looking at it. And that's when frustration builds in. So, toe dipping, try and avoid it.